Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Biz or Life Wisdom. And what I want to talk to you about today is why I think that saying I'm so busy should be banned. Why have I got a beef about saying I'm busy when most of us are busy and probably far too often than we really want to be? It's an everyday word, so why would I want it just, ripped out of the dictionary? The reason I do is because there's lots of connotations, lots of meanings that are implied when we use that word. So if I set the scene by saying, imagine you are meeting up with a friend you hadn't seen for a while or speaking on the phone, and you say to him or her, how are you going? How have you been? And they say, oh, I've been so busy. I've been doing this and this and this and this and this. And apart from the fact that that sounds really exhausting, it also can mean that the person is saying it, and maybe not consciously, it mightn't be deliberate, but they're saying it almost as if it's a badge of honour. Have you met people that seem to do that? Maybe you've even done it yourself. Have a think about whether you might have. And what I mean by badge of honour is there's this belief, fairly widespread belief, that if we're busy, it means that we're important. Wow, she or he's got that many things to do. Wow, they must be important. They must be somebody. And also, it actually then can be almost a status symbol. And it looks as though the person, it can give off the air or the belief that the person has a lot of drive. They've got a lot of energy. They're really action takers. And, there's that saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. That's a really good example of what might be the motivation with somebody saying that they are so busy. But the problem with that is that certainly as far as I'm concerned, being busy isn't a measure of success. If anything, it's the opposite. And what I mean by that is when we are so busy, and I'm talking about particularly if it happens on a regular basis, and busy that's crazy busy. When it starts being fun, before, when you actually stop becoming productive. When you are that busy, you're actually not efficient. In other words, you're not doing things in the best way possible. And you're not effective. Meaning that your outcome, whatever the goal is that you want with what it is that you're doing, is actually not being achieved. So it's actually not a good choice of behaviour. Therefore, saying how busy you are, again, as a regular thing to say to people and to think, because it's our language with ourselves as well as with others, can really be quite problematic. Another problem with saying it, again, particularly regularly, is that our language, which as I said, includes our thoughts as well as what we say out aloud, either to ourselves or to others, actually then perpetuates itself. It becomes an affirmation, albeit a negative affirmation. So if I keep saying to people, and if I keep thinking to myself, I'm so busy, I'm just busy all the time, what's going to happen? You're going to be busy, inverted commas, all the time. Because what we say out aloud, what we think to ourselves, is actually a form of hypnosis. It embeds into our unconscious when it's repeated enough, and we don't even necessarily realise that. It then becomes, because it is habitual, becomes a repeated thing that we say or that we think, and then really it creates our reality. And again, if it's not positive, then why would we want that reality to be recreated again and again and again? Another thing with saying that we're so busy, I see it as being a sign that we're not in control. You know, I have this image of, you know, the little ball in a pinball machine, you know, with the lever that springs and the ball is just ricocheted from one point to the other point to the other point. That's how I see busy, where the ball has no control where it goes, and neither does somebody who's really, really busy. They're being very reactive, and they're not working in a conscious way, therefore. So it actually then becomes really disempowering. And again, if we're talking about success, then being disempowered and success don't go together. So the other thing is also that when it's disempowering, I'd have to question, why does the person not have the power? Why are they not empowered? Why aren't they prioritizing? That's what I mean by being empowered in this situation. Why are they not prioritizing with the things that they're doing, or they're not doing it in an effective way? And is it around things like they don't know how to prioritize? And we don't naturally know. You know, I think we think that we should be knowing all this stuff, how to decide about whether to do one thing or another at any particular point in time. Sometimes it's really easy, but it's not always easy. And being productive and learning to prioritize is really, really important, an important skill that not everybody has mastered. I also wonder that it can be a case of not being able to set boundaries and saying no. What can underlie this idea of I'm so busy is almost this martyr complex of I'm so busy, but look at how many wonderful things I'm doing, how many people I'm helping, and isn't it absolutely wonderful? Therefore, I must be wonderful, and I want you to like me or approve of me. And that's what can happen, underlie that behaviour. And of course, what that means is that it's actually really not helping or serving the person in the highest way possible. And it can become habitual where the person needs to have that sense of approval from outside sources rather than giving themselves approval, having the sense of self developed enough that they don't need to do that. So it's interesting, I think, that a phrase that can seem so simple, so not dangerous, can actually be responsible for a whole lot of stuff underneath it that's happening that we may not be consciously aware of. So I really invite you to consider how often you say, I am so busy, and the way that you say it, the situations that have happened that lead you to say it, and whether you're telling other people or yourself, and that you may actually be hypnotizing yourself into this way of being as part of your reality. So just to finish off, what can you say instead? I have actually really consciously done my best to eradicate busy from my language, my dictionary that I use. What I might say is, I've had a lot of things on, or I've had to prioritize. So if somebody's asked me to do something and I haven't done it, I won't say something like, oh, I'm so sorry, I was just so busy, I just couldn't do it. Because that's a victim mentality. And we're talking about disempowerment. That's where that disempowerment, comes into it. It's an example of that. What I say instead is, I had a number of other priorities and I didn't have capacity for it. And what I mean by that is, at some point, I made a decision as to whether I was going to do that thing or not. And I, in that situation, chose to prioritize something else. It wasn't because I was so busy. It was because I prioritized something over that thing. And that's much more empowering. So if you can really think about how to reframe, how to rephrase the way that you talk about doing a lot of things, how you say it to yourself and to other people, so it becomes much more empowering. And of course, being mindful of consciously deciding and being okay with what you decided as to whether you're going to do something or not do or not do that thing, and how you then talk about it to yourself and others. So I invite you to have a practice with that this next coming week. And let me know how it goes, either when you've tried it for a little bit of time, or any comments or questions as usual. Put them in the comments below. I love to hear how it sits for you, whether you agree with me that it should be a phrase that should be banned, whether you think I'm going a bit over the top, whether these are things that you've thought about in relation to that phrase of I'm so busy or not. Anyway, let me know what you think. Bye for now.